Fun. Yeah. Good evening. It's August and the 25th of it. I'm going to call the meeting to order with a declaration of quorum. Councilors Duran and Barone will be here later today when we'll see about Councilor Linton. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to everyone for being here. I act as council president, so tonight, because, anyway, anytime I'm council president, I am able to make motions and vote, so we'll be doing that as we move forward. Just wanted to say that ahead of time. City Manager Smith, are there any changes to the agenda? All right. Well, then first we're going to start off with a recognition. We're going to acknowledge 50 years of service to the city of Hermiston by Margaret Saylor. Margaret has been active on the Planning Commission since joining the committee in 1975. She spent 16 years as the vice chair and another 16 years as the chair. She is also the longest serving planning commissioner in the history of the state of Oregon. In recognition of Margaret's amazing achievements and her dedication to community service and shaping the growth of Hermiston, we have two items to present to Margaret. Now, Margaret, would you step forward, please? So, Margaret, first off here, we've got a plaque from the City Council thanking you for your service. We also have a map prepared by the Planning Department, and it shows the city limits when Margaret joined and the Planning Commission, when she joined the Planning Commission and today's city limits. During Margaret's tenure on the Planning Commission, the city has grown from 2,300 to 5,400 acres. In 50 years, Margaret has worked on 209 annexations, 87 variances, 204 conditional use permits, and 95 subdivisions. A representative from the Department of Land Conservation and Development is also in attendance tonight. Don Hertz is the DLCD representative for Eastern Oregon and has a few words to say as well. Don?
I should say. Right. Here's a certificate of recognition. Oh, thank you. And I'll speak on here. I've got a little, so proclamation. Hi, everyone. I am Don Hurt. I'm the Eastern Oregon Regional Rep from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And tonight I'm presenting on behalf of the Department of Land Conservation and Development a proclamation honoring Margaret E. Saylor for 50 years of dedicated service to the City of Hermiston Planning Commission. On this day, DLCD is recognizing and celebrating the remarkable contributions of Margaret E. Saylor on the occasion of her 50th anniversary of service with the City of Hermiston Planning Commission. For half a century, Ms. Saylor has demonstrated steadfast commitment to thoughtful land use and planning and responsible stewardship of Hermiston's growth. Her leadership has helped shape a thriving, vibrant community that reflects the values of collaboration, foresight, and care for both present and future generations. Margaret's enduring service stands as a shining example of civic dedication. Over 5 decades, she has contributed her wisdom and integrity to countless planning decisions that have strengthened the fabric of Hermiston community and upheld the principles of Oregon land use system. DLCD honors Margaret E. Saylor not only for her extraordinary tenure, but for the legacy of this thoughtful planning, community engagement, and public service that she has built. Her work has left an indelible mark on Hermiston and serves as an inspiration to public servants across our great state. Therefore, DLCD proclaims that August 25th, 2025 as a day to celebrate Margaret E. Saylor's 50 years of service and extend our deepest gratitude for outstanding contributions to Oregon's communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Don. Does any of the council wish to say anything? Go ahead.
Margaret on several different committees. She's always been a stand-up gal and If she says she'll do it, she will. Thank you.
Margaret, I just want to say thank you for your time and service. 50 years. Wow. That's all I gotta say.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the council? All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. 50 years.
Oh, sorry, I moved it. Thank you.
All righty, what a remarkable achievement. Now, for our opportunity for citizen input on non-agenda items, anyone wishing to bring anything before the council that is not on the agenda is asked to please do the following. 1, please limit your comments to not more than 5 minutes. State your name and address and direct your comments to me. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Going once, go for it. Yep, yes, please, into the microphone.
Okay, my name is Al Frost. I come to Hermiston in 1942. Pretty much lived here ever since. I've served on the council and the budget committees and piles of different committees over the years. I live in Arizona part-time.
Real quick, can I ask you to move the microphone, just tilt it up a little bit? Thank you.
And I come back and I'm really not too pleased with what I find in the city. I went to see the chief of police about 7 times, and he's always busy. I've talked to lieutenants, sergeants, a PR girl up the front room, and basically about noise ordinances and stuff like that. I don't like the direction my town is going. I feel that if we don't get it in hold, it's going to look like the Yakima Valley. I don't want that for my city. I don't know how you are on your long-range planning, but try go in front of the Dairy Queen at 5 o'clock. You know, they're just, we've got a good town here, but I do believe that we got to stay on top of it. 97% of the people in Hermiston are good people. About 3% I consider losers. And I explained that to the mayor, and he told me, well, they have their rights too. I'm really not too concerned about their rights. I'm concerned about my rights. Noise ordinances, every night you hear this, there's 20 of these guys with little hopped up cars, and they're popping, and I'm sure you've all heard them. But this is a good town. I'm glad to call it my home, but I think we need to be aware of what this could turn out. You know, I feel we've got a good police department. I've talked to a lot of different officers. I've talked to state policemen, sheriffs about this noise thing. And go out after tonight, after the meeting, and you're going to hear them kids running around in their hopped up cars. I don't think we need that. I live on 4th Street. It says 25 miles an hour. It's a racetrack. I just feel we can do better, and I'd like to speak to the chief when it's his convenience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Anybody have any questions?
This isn't really set up for a question and answer moment, but you're allowed to make comments.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? All right, then we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items A, B, and C. Are there any council questions to the about the consent agenda? Are there any public comments for consent agenda items A through C? Any council comments on the consent agenda? Does the council wish to remove any items? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Motion to accept. Second.
Perfect. Been moved by Councilor Hayward, seconded by Josh. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to a public hearing, the Hermiston Urban Growth Boundary Amendment relevant to ordinances numbers 2374 and 2375. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest or ex parte contact from the council?
Yes, that would be me. I have a conflict of interest because it involves AWS, Amazon Web Service, and I have talked to the state ethics and they recommend me to recuse myself.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We will let you do that. Hearing guidelines will now be presented by City Staff, Planning Director Clint Spencer.
This is a legislative hearing to consider the following land use actions: an expansion of the Hermiston urban growth boundary, annexation of the expansion area, and amendments to the city's land use implementation documents are proposed. A hearing is scheduled to consider all changes as a single process. These land use actions are considered land use decisions and may be appealable to the Land Use Board of Appeals pursuant to ORS 197-830. Objections to a final city decision on an urban growth boundary expansion exceeding 50 acres may be filed to the Director of the Oregon Land Conservation and Development Department within 21 days of a final city decision on such an expansion. This public hearing will begin with a staff report followed by public testimony. Public testimony can address any issue but should be directed to the applicable laws, administrative rules, and Hermiston Comprehensive Plan and code provisions governing the city's decision, which are listed in the public notice. Each member of the public may have 5 minutes for oral testimony. The City Council will make every attempt to allow each person to present the opportunity to testify, but it is not obligated to do so. Rebuttal testimony shall not be taken. At the conclusion of the public testimony, the City Council shall close the public hearing for deliberation, continue the public hearing, or close the hearing to further written testimony and leave the record open for additional written testimony. Any written testimony should be submitted to the city recorder before the close of the hearing unless the City Council continues the hearing or leaves the written record open to a time certain. Any person may request that the hearing be continued or the written record held open, but the City Council is not obligated to grant such a request.
Thank you, Clint. The hearing is now open. City staff will now present its report. Clint Spencer.
Yes. Tonight, City Council is holding multiple requests in one hearing. The amendments are a culmination of the process that we started back in 2023 when the council initiated a new economic opportunities analysis. The findings of that EOA showed that the city is well situated for commercial and small lot industrial land, but severely lacking in 100-acre industrial sites. 100-acre industrial sites are necessary to accommodate heavy industrial users, and the EOA showed that data centers specifically are a fast-growing industrial segment globally, nationally, and regionally. With 2 data center campuses already under construction inside the city limits, and with an additional 8 campuses built regionally in the last 10 years, Hermiston needs to be able to adequately accommodate this demonstrated demand. In order to meet this demand, the city is proposing to expand the urban growth boundary by 810 acres, annex that land into the city, and designate this land as heavy industrial with a hyperscale data center overlay zone. We have a team here to present the application both in person and online. I'll introduce them at the conclusion of my comments. The urban growth boundary amendment is not a simple process and requires a lot of work to satisfy the city's own requirement and the statewide planning goals for this type of action. The number of amendments is being considered is 8. However, due to the nature of the amendments and the structure of the staff report and findings, only 2 ordinances have been prepared to accommodate all of these amendments. Basically, we're looking at an omnibus ordinance that accommodates all of those different changes, with the exception of annexation, which is separated out into its own ordinance, mostly due to notification and record-keeping requirements that we have to do whenever there's an annexation. It's much simpler from an administrative process for us to have annexation as a separate ordinance. The other ordinance, 2374, and motion to adopt that ordinance has multiple amendments contained within that single motion. One would amend the urban growth boundary to encompass land south of Feedville Road and designate that land as industrial on our comprehensive plan map. It amends the text of the zoning ordinance to create a new overlay zone specifically for hyperscale data centers. There's some housekeeping in section 4 of our comprehensive plan to add that HDC overlay to our list of zones in our comp plan. We are proposing amendments to section 3 of the comprehensive plan to reflect the findings that are adopted as part of the UGB amendment. Once that land is inside the UGB, we are proposing to designate it as heavy industrial with the hyperscale data center overlay on our zoning map. And then as part of the groundwork for amending the urban growth boundary, we have also prepared a new public facilities plan, and this would be added into our comprehensive plan as Appendix I. It's pretty much all that I have to say for the staff report. We have been working on this for a couple of years, and I want to introduce our team who's in attendance both in person and online tonight. We have Jesse Winterud from Winterbrook Planning. He has been doing quite a bit of the work, and Joshua Lott from Anderson Perry has been helping with the public facilities end of it and infrastructure needs. Garrett Stevenson from Schwabe Lanes Wyatt has been the city's land use counsel on this item. Matt Hugart from Kittleson and Associates is online tonight. They have been helping us with transportation needs, and Larissa Gladding and Kiva Campbell from Winterbrook are also online. So we have a good team who have additional presentation to make, going into much more detail and to answer any questions that we may have.
Thank you, Clint. All right, now we move on to public testimony.
Well, actually, we're still in the.
Oh,
in
sorry. Yep, go for it.
We have more staff report.
We're not
at this
moving.
point.
Strike that.
Thank you, Clint. Yes, I'm Jesse Winterode with Winterbrook Planning, and I'm here with Joshua. And I'm going to walk through the process we use to look around the urban growth boundary within and without to find the data center sites that we are proposing to include. Started off, as Clint says, with the economic opportunities analysis that was adopted in 2024, where we looked at what are the city's needs over 20 years for commercial, industrial land, and what are the target industries and what do they need? What we found was there was a need for over 1,200 acres of land for data center development. That was the big need that this EOA identified. And there are 2 sites within the UGB that could accommodate it. Those were being developed already for that need. And then there was no other land within the urban growth boundary that could meet the hyperscale data center need. So what that meant was we had a need to expand the urban growth boundary for 9 hyperscale data center sites, each at least 100 acres in size. And so that was the foundation. That's why we were brought in to say, well, okay, now that there's this need, how do we accommodate that? So we started off with looking around Hermiston. And this is a map showing the zoning in every direction. We have a mile that extends to a 1.5 mile study area around the entire urban growth boundary. And the yellow on this map is rural residential. The green is farmland. The gray is rural industrial. And as you can see, there's a lot of the yellow and a big chunk of gray on the bottom, and a lot of green to the west and east. So the need for the sites, we had a specific set of site requirements for these hyperscale sites. 100, over 100 contiguous acres after you remove constrained lands such as wetlands, floodplain, steeply sloped or sloped land in this case. And we also have in the code a 200-foot buffer from residential uses that was part of this analysis. We also had a lot of work, and we'll get into that in a little bit, on how is it possible to serve this land with water, sewer, and transportation, the major public facilities. That was part of the work here. So we ended up finding, as you may recall from the earlier map, much of the land on the north side is rural residential that's usually cut up. It's nowhere near 100 acres in size. And the large sites tend to be on farmland. And also rural industrial has the opportunity to provide sites that are large enough to meet this need. And so we found there were several areas, a total of 6 areas, tracts that had at least 100 acres in size that were suitable to meet this need, ranging up to over 400 acres on the east side tract that was within the study area. However, to get through the state process, you need to follow a very specific and restrictive set of priorities. And so the first priority, you need to bring in urban reserve, which there is none here, or exception area land. And so there's one site that is within rural industrial that's indicated as S2 on this map that is the highest priority for bringing into the urban growth boundary. So that was the #1 priority. We had to bring that in. Then the second priority, marginal land, we don't have that here. Third priority is non-high value farmland, which we didn't have a site that met that criterion. And the fourth priority is actually sort of a 2-part fourth priority of high value farmland. Then there's lower quality high value farmland and higher quality high value farmland. And so we had W, S1, and S3 were lower quality high value farmland, and E1 and E2 were higher quality high value farmland. And so we decided, well, what would be the safest, most secure urban growth boundary amendment choice? Part of what we look for is not having conflicts with farmland, with residential. And so we proposed bringing in the area south of Feedville Road that is surrounded by rural industrial land and railroads. And so that's what's in front of you today. It's not the full need. It's not meeting everything. You're allowed to take a partial expansion to meet some of the need, not all of the need that you've identified. And so this is, I would say, more of a proof of concept. If we bring in this large chunk of land on the south side, how quickly will it develop? Does it meet all of the need for 20 years immediately? No, but we can come back if there is this demand and it just develops right up and say, okay, well, we've done the safest, most secure urban growth boundary amendment to meet 5 site needs. And then we can look beyond that if it proves out that these will develop quickly in this area. We had a lengthy analysis, working with Anderson Perry to look at water and sewer. And I have these maps in here to allow for further discussion if we get to that, with water and sewer service, as well as transportation with some required improvements on Feedville. We can talk more about those things if there are questions about those, but that was engineering analysis that was covering all of those questions, and very, very detailed and thorough look at that. So we end up with the proposed expansion and annexation area, as noted, areas south of Feedville Road, surrounded by the railroad areas and rural industrial. And this has much less conflict with farmland, with rural residential areas, than other options, and so that is why we're proposing it. That's the end of our quick presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to public testimony. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Are there people wishing to speak or asked to state their name and mailing address and limit testimony to 5 minutes? First, we'll ask, are there any proponents who wish to speak? Are there any neutral parties who wish to speak? Are there any opponents or remonstrances who wish to speak? Go ahead.
Kara Jones, 1010 West Highland Avenue, Hermiston, Oregon. I don't know if this is opposition or not, but I'm assuming you're going to have to improve Feedville Road. Is that correct? Will industry be paying for that, or will be the Hermiston taxpayers be paying for that?
Any improvements that are necessitated by the developing of any data centers will have to be borne by the data center developers themselves.
Okay, that's great news. And then I just wanted to make sure, do you feel that there's adequate roads, I guess, that can handle the kind of traffic increase that will be happening if all of those data centers are being built? I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Yes, the transportation analysis did look at that, and yeah, that's
Okay.
what the analysis was about.
Okay, that was my big concern. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any other opponents? All right. Hearing is now closed. Are there any council questions, comments, or discussion? Go ahead.
No, I thought I saw in there that it could not be hindered by the railroad. As
Correct.
in,
Yeah.
I'm taking it that the railroad lines cannot run through there.
That's, so when we looked at the site needs, to have a contiguous 100-acre site, it couldn't be a site that had a railroad running through the middle of it that would cut it under 100 acres. So that was what that's about.
And it doesn't.
Correct. These sites do not have railroads that are going through them. They're railroads that are going around them. And so you have, each of these sites has railroads next to it, but not through the site itself.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Myers. Are there any other council comments? Go ahead. Councilor Kelso.
Is the land that we're considering including in the urban growth boundary currently owned by the railroad?
One property is, and all of the properties that we're proposing have signed annexation agreements. And so they're all on board with the concept here.
Okay, thank you.
I have several questions with the information. I think, Mr. Spencer, that you said that you've worked on this paperwork, the project for like 2 years?
We, including the economic opportunities analysis, yes.
Okay, well, one of my questions is, if you all worked on it 2 years and then we're given this paperwork on Wednesday night to read, and that was not enough time to go through all of this. I didn't even get a chance to go through all of it. I'm already going to say I'm not going to vote. I'm going to vote no, because I need to be able to have the time, and we should be considered as, since we represent as council, the constituents of Hermiston, we should have the time to be able to thoroughly go through all the information, be able to read it all, so that we can make a decision that will be a proper vote.
I just
So-
want to bring to your attention, Councilor Linton, that we were sent this packet on the 20th of August.
Which, today's the 25th.
Mhm.
That's 5 days ago.
Yeah, you said that we received it tonight. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, I made a mistake. I said Wednesday night. I thought I
Okay.
said Wednesday night. Well, thank you for the correction. I thought I said Wednesday night. And then that only gave us 5 days to actually go through all of it. One part that I looked at was 75 pages long. The other was 80 pages, and I haven't even gotten to the appendix, all the appendices yet.
Yeah, there is a lot of information.
Yes, there is a lot, because I have several, I have about let me see here, 14 questions just through the few pages that I've gotten through. And so I'm hoping that in the future, that when we have packets this long, that we are given more time to be able to go through it. And I did put quite a few hours in trying to get through a lot of it, and still, you have to go back and forth. So that is what I'm trying to say about the information. So one of the things, I don't know if this is proper to ask it right now.
Questions are appropriate, yeah.
Okay. One of the ones is that it's going to be for, the land is going to be for data use only, the hyperscale data center. I would like to know in the contract, when the contract is written, I don't know if it's written at this time, if they decide somewhere down the road, because AI is going to be taking over a lot of things, that they do not want to build those extra data centers, will they be, will it be in the contract that they will still have to pay full property tax, not a discount of the 40% that they already get?
I am not aware of a contract. I'm not sure how to respond.
So the land that we're talking about tonight is not under any agreement with any developer of any data center. This is to propose that they would be designated to be used for data centers. That's what the land could be used for if they're purchased, and then they have to go through a whole development process with the city and possible agreements related to taxes or not taxes, enterprise zones, all of those. That's all in the future on the land that we're discussing tonight. There are no enterprise zone agreements. There's no known development on these sites up
Okay.
to this point.
But in the paperwork that I was reading, it was saying that it was going to be used, designated for data center use only.
Correct. So what the was shared earlier is that we went through a process. That's the need that was discovered in our economic opportunities analysis, that we needed land of 100 acres to be able to develop additional data center sites. That was the need that it identified. And so that's why it's saying, and this is, really is kind of in conformance with all the land use laws that we work with in Oregon too, so that we don't say we need it for data centers and then tomorrow we develop it for houses or for commercial, for a mall or something like that. It's designated for that because that's the need that was identified.
Okay, so if in the future, if they decide, okay, we're not gonna build 10, we're gonna do 5. I'm just using that as a number. Will that land be designated to be used for something else? Can it be, or does it have, because in the paperwork it's saying for that use only.
We
And I
would
don't-
have to go through a planning process like this, maybe not as extensive. I don't know exactly the extent, but we'd have to go through a process seeking public input, coming before the planning commission, the city council to change that designation to another use.
So we would be able to change it?
We would be able to.
Okay.
City Manager Smith, it's also possible that nothing happens with this land and it's not developed on. It's just designated for that use.
That's correct.
Thank you. Did you have more, Councilor Lynn?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm not sure if you answered this question when Ms. Jones asked about the roads, but I wanted to know, this was a question asked of me. Why do we need to take property and spend 2.8 million on grade Phase 2, building a new road when Feetville already exists and connects to 207, 2395, and would facilitate further future expansion as opposed to Getman, which is essentially already filled in by existing residential builds? I can read that again because that was a long question, if you like.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I understand the full question, but the reason we would need to, under the circumstances that we've talked about tonight, to expand our urban growth boundary and annex additional land into the city for future development, if all of that development occurs,
Speedville Road would need to be developed to handle that traffic. That was, I believe, the question that the resident came up and asked before is it going to be paid for by the development? That's our policy. That's how we develop new roads, is new development pays for that. And so that's why we would need it, because additional traffic would be going on that road.
Okay. I still have another question. Oh,
Go ahead.
oh, all right. Okay, it looks like the city UGB making boundaries around companies like Nutrien, Percival Pump, M&M Potatoes. Explain why those properties are being left out the UGB, because it's looking like a checkboard. You're going around, I drove over in that area
Right,
the other day
okay.
as
I mean,
well.
this goes back to what we talked about earlier. The need in the study about our economic needs were that we needed 100-acre plus parcels to accommodate specific data center style development. And so those parcels are already developed. The Nutrien has a building on it. I don't even know how many acres are on it. Those types of, they're already developed. And so we were looking for land that could accommodate this specific economic need.
I understand, but why can't they be brought into the urban growth boundaries?
I
I
mean,
mean, instead of going around them like this, you know?
that's correct. We only annex at the request of the property owner. Garrett, would you like to help me?
This is on. There we go.
There we go.
Good evening, Council President McCarthy, City Councilors. My name is Garrett Stevenson. I'm with the law firm of Schwabe, Williamson and Wyatt, and I've actually, you probably don't know this, but Clint and I have been working together on land use matters for about the last 10 years. And my role at the city is to advise on special land use issues. I'm a land use lawyer, and I do some municipal law as well. And so your city manager graciously brought me out here to field questions just like this. And I think, Councilor Linton, your question has to do with why we bring in certain properties and leave other ones out. And the way that this works, and I think that the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that the methodology that we use is prescribed under state law. The city can't simply go out and decide, hey, we like this land, let's bring it in because it makes sense to us. That's always the starting point with the idea and the discussion, but that's not where we end up, because Oregon law is very prescriptive about how we bring certain lands in. And there's a couple things that we have to look at when we do that. And there is a process that we go through. This council earlier this year adopted an economic opportunities analysis that identified a specific need for a specific type of development. Why did it do this? Because there's an opportunity for economic development in the city. There's a demand for a certain type of land use that could benefit the residents of the city. And the question before the council at that time was, is this something worth pursuing? And that's why we go through that economic opportunities analysis, to identify the types of land use needs that we may see coming down the pike, particularly for economic development. So that's step one. That step's already been completed. The next step is to determine which lands ought to come in and which lands should stay out. And we have to do that based on some very prescriptive rules that are set forth in state statute and state rules. And one of those rules basically has to do with priority. So there's a couple things that are in tension here. We have, on the one hand, the types of lands that we're looking for, which, as Jesse mentioned, are those lands that are 100 acres or larger, because that is the prototypical land use type that the economic opportunities analysis that the council adopted is calling for. So that's our starting point. The second thing we have to do, so we can go around and we can use geographical information systems, GIS, to identify any number of sites within cannon shots distance that are 100 acres or more that we may consider bringing into the urban growth boundary. But once that initial look is done, we have to go through a priority analysis. And the priority analysis is required by state law. And our first starting point for that, oddly enough, is the type of soils that you're dealing with. The other thing we look at, and Jesse mentioned it, I believe, in his presentation, is exception lands. So for the most part, rural lands are held in one of three categories. They're either held for exclusive farm use, forest use, or exception lands. And exception lands are basically everything else. And so one of the things that the state requires us to do is to bring in those lands that are exception lands first. So what you have is a demonstrated need, then you find sites that might be able to accommodate that need, but then you have to run them through a filter. And that filter applies the exception lands requirements, and then it applies soils, stuff like that. It's somewhat complicated, but the theory is simple. And that's why you end up with some sites coming in and some sites staying out. So we know we're not going to bring in sites that are less than 100 acres. And there are some sites that are 100 acres or more, but don't meet the priority test that the legislature's laid out. And I was there watching the process as your consultants put this analysis together, and I'm pretty confident in what they came up with. But that's why you're not seeing a perfect urban form there where you have, okay, it's just one big block, we're bringing it in, makes sense. It's because of those state rules that we have to choose which to bring in and which to leave out.
Thank you. And can I ask you a question? Does anyone own that property that we're looking at?
All the property has ownership associated with it.
Okay, so, okay.
And so the way it works, so the city can go out and it can, with the agreement of the county and with the agreement of the Department of Land Conservation and Development, the city can expand its urban growth boundary without the approval of a property owner. In this case, though, we have approval of those property owners because not only are they in favor of the UGB expansion, but they've actually submitted, they've submitted petitions to annex, which means they're okay with the urban growth boundary, and they actually, once we put the urban growth boundary out there, then we annex those cities into the city limits. And all the property owners that are affected have sought annexation in addition to the UGB expansion.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give opportunities for other council members to speak. I know I saw Roy, your hand up. Councilor Brown, sorry.
Thank you. I got a comment and a question. First, I understand we had a big packet, so over 500 pages, but it's equally as important to know that we, the council, adopted that 2024 economic analysis, and we adopted it last year. So a lot of this information isn't brand new. It's information that we as a council have already approved and held a public hearing for. But my question is about the water use. I've had a couple citizens, I would say appropriately, with big industry like this comes big consumption. And so my question is about water use and how that benefits the community. In what ways would this project help the local community in terms of water use?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of information out there where folks look at the hyperscale data center industry as a large water consumer. But I think what we have found, at least in the Columbia Basin, acre for acre data centers actually consume about half as much water acre for acre as other agricultural uses such as potato, corn, onions, those types of commodities. From a beneficial standpoint to the community, we really see the investments being provided by these large industrial users as what I would consider to be like paying the freight for moving a lot of this water. So you got to remember these facilities are using water for cooling. They're pulling this water from the Columbia River. They're pulling it 9 miles south and vertically several hundred feet. That's simply not economical for agricultural users to pay the cost of pushing that much water that far south and that far uphill. So they're really just at the mercy of either the rainfall or the snowpack that year coming down the Umatilla River and filling Cold Springs Reservoir, those types of things, or what we see a lot of and what we actually see with at least several hundred acres that's included in this UGB expansion is several hundred acres that's included right now, they're just simply mining the aquifer. So they're agriculturally, they've sunk a well and they're sucking water out of the ground and putting that onto to fields and exporting that water out of the region. So they're actually depleting our local resource. By adding hyperscale data centers that are cooled by water that's pulled from the Columbia River, that's actually going to be bringing a significant amount of water down to the Feedville Road corridor. Then after the hyperscale data centers are done using it, we anticipate that they'll discharge roughly half of the water that they took in, and that water's clean enough. It's just simply the only thing added to it has been a little bit of heat because they're using it to cool. And then that will be discharged into several local irrigation district canals. And from there, now it's far enough south and it's high enough that it can now simply just gravity feed through the irrigation district system to provide irrigation water for several hundred acres of agricultural production that's predominantly serving, small local farmers. Most of this water is going to end up in the Hermiston irrigation district, which by far and away is small acreage farmers. So those are just some of the beneficial uses that we anticipate from seeing this development with regards to water.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is this is also going to help our local farmers be able to have more access to water and more reliable access to water.
Correct.
Thank you. And one more, Mr. Council President, if I may. This, before this came to us, was this not vetted or at least in front of the Planning Commission before it came to the City Council?
Yeah, I can address that. The Planning Commission did review the entire package at their August meeting and did make a unanimous recommendation to the council to move forward with all the amendments as submitted.
Unanimous, you said? Thank you.
Councilor Myers, I think you had something else as well.
So what we, the council here tonight, are doing is simply, well, not simply, nothing is simple, but expanding the urban growth boundary and zoning it so that it could be these data centers. But zones can always be changed
Through another process, yes.
through a different process. There's always another process, but what we are doing here tonight is expanding the urban growth boundary.
As well as the city limits, correct? That's,
We're
Yes.
expanding the city limits, the urban growth boundary. We are, as Clint mentioned, doing a few comprehensive plan and development code changes as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the council?
Yes, I still have questions, but.
I'm going to let Councilor Durham go first.
Right. Thank you for the time. And I apologize. I was coming from a school because it's open house tonight at all of our schools. But we have some planning committee members here tonight, Mr. Fialka, Mr. Doherty. If there are more, forgive me. I don't know all of the names, but you sat through this process, right, where questions were asked. And if you had any concerns, you would have addressed them there. We have the committee because it goes thoroughly, sometimes till 10, 11 o'clock at night, having these types of discussion. A committee that the city has put forth, has implemented to have these kinds of conversations where you go not, you get to hear from all parties. Is it right? And you're able to question that. My question is, Councilor Linton, is were there any concerns that you had that perhaps some of the members that were here tonight that I didn't get a chance to hear, but I was told that there were some community members that had here that weren't addressed at your meeting?
Good evening, Councilor Duran and councilors. I am Dean Fialka. I'm your current chair of the Planning Commission. And yes, we did look at this in detail at our regular meeting, as Mr. Spencer said, the second Wednesday of this month. Now, Ms. Jones showed up to our meeting and asked the same questions, and I was under the impression that she was not, she was okay with the development as it is. She asked questions about the traffic issues, which there are traffic issues, and there was an extensive traffic impact analysis that was done on this. And there were some recommendations made, but those would be implemented as the development goes along, because the traffic is going to be changing. And they also acknowledged that traffic is going to be changing along the Feedville corridor, whether or not the hyperscale data centers go in. So there are, as everything that comes before the Planning Commission seems like anymore, traffic is an issue. We have to look at traffic and we have to be concerned with traffic. So yes, traffic was analyzed, and I think the Planning Commission as a whole, because we did pass the recommendation on to the City Council in a unanimous vote, that we were comfortable with the traffic analysis that went on, with the development analysis that is put forward for you, because we have, if I may go off on a kind of a personal level, we have an opportunity here to further the economic growth of the city. Yes, there are challenges, but there are lots and lots of opportunities. And we think that these are good opportunities to take a look at, and with a little wisdom and cautiousness, go ahead. And we were very comfortable with what has been put forward and put before you.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. My other question was, is the expansion of the urban growth zone not part of our goals?
It is listed in our council goals.
Correct. And that is what we agreed on when we met in January as a whole. As the city council, we all voted on this and we agreed on it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Council Lynch, you have some?
Questions? First, I want to say I was elected by the constituents of Hermiston, and I have a right as a council person to ask questions. And even if we did vote for the goals, and goals can come and go, they can change. And I respect the city planners. I know I know one person is very intelligent, and I know he knows what he's doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have to I have questions and I can ask my questions and then they can be answered and they'll be on record. I want them on record. So.
Do you have a question,
Can you-
Councilor Lynch?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So when you mentioned about the water and you said, I think it's on, let me see here, appendix, I think it's in appendix I, number 11, page 4, and it says 18,000 gallons per acre of drinking water. I don't understand why we're using our drinking water, but if it's per acre, if you, and if it's 100 acres per facility, it's going to be a lot more water that's going to be needed and used. And I think that was going to come out to be about 1 million, 1.8 million of our drinking water. So why are we using drinking water and just not using non-portable water? Because the water is going to be towns from 10 to 50,000 people.
Yeah, so the drinking water aspect is because these facilities do have employees, and so there's always employee drinking water needs. There's break rooms, those types of things, and so we anticipate upwards of 200 employees potentially cycling through each one of these properties that could develop into data centers. So there's always a need for drinking water. Also, I think when you aggregate volumes of water like that over the course of an entire year, something like 1 million gallons sounds very large. But what we anticipate, you mentioned the non-potable water being used for cooling. We do anticipate providing non-potable water for cooling for these facilities, and we anticipate for an entire campus to use roughly during the summer when they're operating around 40 million gallons of water over the course of an entire year. Now, for reference, that's equal to about 1.5 elementary schools. So compared to some industries, it's really not a massive amount of water when you're talking about the amount of water. But the bulk of that larger 40 million gallons is going to be non-potable water that then gets turned around and put into the irrigation canals after it's done being used.
Okay, I'm going to ask about that. I'm going to skip over to another question because the water that's going to be turned to irrigation, there is, I want to know if it's ethylene or is it propylene? And I think I'm pronouncing it right, ETHYLENE? Or is it PROPYLEN, glycol, GLYCOL? Is that, because once that water goes through the system, which one of those is coming out of, going into that water when it goes through the system?
So I'm not 100% sure where you're referencing, but I'm going to guess that you're probably referencing that there are other cooling opportunities. So, I've been to the really kind of the National Data Center Conference, Data Center World in Washington, D.C. the last 2 years. It includes all of the major hyperscale industry players, Google, Meta, Amazon, all of those industries. And there is a certain shift towards what we have right now is what would be considered evaporative cooling. So that uses water. But there is also non-water-based cooling, and that does use things like glycol. And the challenge and the trade-off with those systems is that they just simply use more electricity to dissipate the heat. And so right now, the data centers around here, they tend to use cooling water for cooling rather than glycol. So that the glycol issue doesn't factor in on an evaporative cooling system. So what they do effectively is they have a large rubberized membrane, and they just run water across that large membrane, soaks the membrane, and then they have large fans that blow air across that membrane. So they're dissipating the heat in the form of the air. That heat goes into the water drips down off the membrane, gets recycled several times, and then once that water is warm enough, then that's when they just simply discharge that water to the irrigation canal. So there's no glycol or ethylene making its way into the system.
Well, in Appendix I, page 9, Appendix I, page 3, it did say that glycol was being used. That's why I wanted to know which one, because one of those is toxic, and I'm not going to say I don't want. Another term I could use, I don't think it would be feasible to allow toxic water to be given to farmland, which will then go into the crops. That's why I wanted to know which one it was, because Appendix I does, on page 3 does say glycol, but it doesn't say which one.
Can you look at the bottom right-hand corner of that page and tell me the number
Right.
there?
I just wrote down the question, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not you, it's me. It's always me.
I see it
And
on
it's
page
under
3
appendix.
of Appendix I, if you're in the staff report as
Is that
for
page
each one.
21 of the packet?
Let me,
I'm trying to get
let
to
me
it.
look on, I pulled up each one separately.
Aye. Okay.
Councilwoman Linton and Mark, I think it's also prudent to know that the Department of Environmental Quality, there's permits that they have to go and requirements that they have to meet with the Department of Environmental Quality. So any water that is discharged to an irrigation ditch has to meet those requirements. So there is some safeguards there to make sure that we're not discharging hazardous materials to the irrigation system.
Okay. I'm trying to find page 3. Okay, I'm on page 3.
On that, we found the page.
Yes, I'm on it now, thank you.
Councilor Linton, what was being talked about is that Mr. Morgan was just laying out that there are, like he explained just now, there are various options that companies use for cooling of a data center. And just like he stated, that's not, neither of those that use any chemical are being used at this current time by the current data center company, AWS, that operates within the city. So like Anderson Perry stated if there were to be a company that would propose a usage like that, they would have to get a permit, and we'd have to do all kinds of work with DEQ to make sure that whatever they did complied with any state requirements, and there would be none of those chemicals being entered into the water that would be damaging.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to ask questions? I will, because I still have.
I would like to ask a question of you, Councilor Linton. Are you certain that the intent of the questions you have affect the ability of us to be able to proceed with a public hearing or not? Because some of your questions seem, I don't know they would help you make your decision to vote or not, since you've already stated that you've made up your mind.
I still want to know the answers, and I want it on record.
Just,
So if anybody
we're
wants to
good.
look back.
We'll keep trying.
Just wanted to, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And yes, I did say how I was going to vote because I did not have enough time to go through all the packet. And I don't, maybe everyone else was able to go through those 500 pages within 5 days, but I was not. So I already stated that at the beginning. Okay, there was an ordinance of, in Appendix A1, page 5. I couldn't find it. It said ordinance 25-XX. I couldn't find it, so I couldn't go over it as I was reading through that. And so I was just wondering where it was at.
Can you restate the appendix it was in?
It said ordinance 25-X.
It was in Appendix A?
It's Appendix A, and yes, that is, it should be 2374, that when this was prepared, we did not have our ordinances prepared.
So it was just a placeholder.
It was a placeholder for the final
on
ordinance number.
the agenda tonight.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I wanted to read it, but thanks. Now, I wanted to know, is it customary to make new categories new categories like HDC? And why was that?
Mr. Winterud may have more information or wish to elaborate further, but yes, it is when you're doing something like an urban growth boundary expansion, because you're trying to meet a specific need. So you want to be able to provide that certainty that the land you're bringing in will be reserved for that specific need. And right now, if we just were to call it heavy industrial without having an overlay on it, I mean, Ford could come in tomorrow and say, oh, we want to build cars here instead. And then we haven't met that need for data centers that we were talking about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, same appendix, page 6. Oops, I passed it. Give me a second. Okay, not exactly sure where it's at on page 6, but I read that, and I couldn't quite understand it, that if the zone will pass, pretty sure it will, but why would a farm need to write a letter to request that they retain a farm status when they are already a farm? I don't understand why that needs to be done. I think that could, in my opinion, be taken out.
Yes.
If it's a farm, it's a farm. Mr.
Is that Appendix F?
Councilor Linton, once again, Garrett Stevenson. I'm going to just kind of guess at what your question's about because I think I know. My guess is it has to do with farm special assessment for tax purposes.
Okay.
So when land becomes urbanized, the way that the state of Oregon requires those assessments to work is that you have to tell them, hey, my land has changed status, but I'm still a farm, so I want to keep my special assessment. And this is the case a lot of times when you have a lot of rural residential that may be farming, may not be near EFU, but there's a presumption under Oregon law that EFU sort of automatically qualifies with very little proof of a farm activity. But if you're outside of EFU, you just have to be able to show the assessor that you're continuing your farm activity and you get to keep your special assessment. I'm not sure if that's the answer to your question, but I'm guessing that's probably what they were talking about there.
Okay, that makes sense. I just didn't understand why that was done that way, but now I do.
It's a common question, and
Okay.
especially when you're doing UGB amendments. But in most cases, not all cases, but people can continue to keep their farm special assessments until they make changes to their land that would preclude it from being used for farm purposes in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Certainly.
Isn't that called farm deferral? And that's what they're after?
Yeah, I tend to use the specific language in the statute, which is special assessment, but yeah, everybody else calls it farm deferral.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to pay for that.
You do.
5 years.
Depends on what zone you're in, but yeah. If you're outside of an EFU zone, most people who are in EFU zones, they don't have it's a pretty easy process with the assessor. I've only gotten involved when they're outside of EFU zones, which means you have to show farm income of a certain amount, I think 3 of the last 5 years. But it is something that obviously comes up when you're expanding UGBs, but typically it's not been a problem for farmers that want to keep their special assessments, their deferrals.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see.
Did you have more, Councilor Linton?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to my question. I'm trying to stay, okay, in Appendix A, get all those answered first before I go over to the next. Okay, my question is in the HUG, boundary expansion and related plan and code amendments. That'll be on page 8. Let me see if I can get over to it here real fast. Okay, page 8. It's the map. Yes, it's, I didn't understand about the residential buffer. Can you explain that to me, please? Are there
Sure,
houses or something
sure.
on there?
Typically, hyperscale data centers don't want to be near residences because they're concerned about complaints. And so in order to help everybody out, to keep the data centers away from those residences so that they wouldn't complain, we are proposing as part of the zoning to have a 200-foot buffer from residential areas that extends in some cases into the hyperscale sites and make sure that they can't develop their hyperscale data centers within 200 feet of residential areas.
Okay, I was thinking, with that 200 feet, if it could be, is there enough room to expand it more? Because the reason I'm asking that is because I seen where a house that was a $300,000 or $400,000 house and a facility, AI facility was built. And it looked like it was like 4 blocks away or something like that, or 5. And their water had been contaminated and that particular city wouldn't do anything about it. So I'm just wondering if the buffer can be larger than 200 feet.
Well, I can't speak to the situation that you're talking about. We think that 200 feet is a good amount to separate and resolve complaints. Yeah, I don't know the situation that you're talking about, though.
Okay, I was just wondering about that because I wouldn't want anyone's home or water to be contaminated. Yes, sir.
So I just want to be specific. The council has the ability to change the code that we're proposing, and it can choose different widths of buffers. One of the reasons why we're proposing the buffer that we are, among others, is that because we're dealing with facilities that are regulated by DEQ, and other state and local regulations, there should not be, if they're constructed correctly, any discharge into the groundwater of any sorts of hazardous chemicals. Typically, when we're worried about groundwater quality, the reason why we have deep buffers is we're dealing with septic systems. These facilities won't have those. At least that's my understanding. Right?
That's correct.
And so I'm familiar with a lot of cases where you'll have houses that need to be set apart from other houses a significant distance, or between any other facility that's using a septic system to make sure that there's no leaching into the groundwater supply for those other houses. But here we don't have that. And so the thing that causes 90% of that groundwater contamination, which are on-site septic systems, are not an issue here.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that people's water was protected. Okay. Uh, the appendix, I think this was under Appendix A2, I'm thinking. I think we're in one right now. No, we're in. There's, oh, I didn't do a good job of writing down exactly what page it was on. But it has to do with, oh, we need additional lines are needed on intersection of Feetville Ott Road. And I wanted to know who's going to be paying for if there's a problem with backup, I think it was saying, on Southeast 7th and and East Main.
So this would be the public facilities plan portion of Appendix A, where we talk about the off-site water and sewer upgrades.
So I'm quite familiar with the water and sewer upgrades, but I don't completely understand exactly what you're asking. Can you please ask that again?
Okay, what I was reading, if my understanding is correct, because of the intersections that's happening at the work over there off of Feetville and Ott Road, it could cause problems on Southeast 7th and East Main Street. And
Is this for transportation?
Lift station 1.
This is the sewer bottleneck at Main
bottleneck.
Street.
yeah.
Oh, so what it did identify is that there is a potential that it's a very small amount of lines by the lift station on the east side of town that may need to be upsized if they contribute enough sewer to the sewer system. But that cost would have to be borne by the developer that ends up developing on these data center sites.
Okay, so if
That would not be funded by the tax-paying constituents of Hermiston.
Okay, so if there's a problem, the developers will pay for the Southeast 7th and Main. Okay,
That is correct.
thank you so much. Okay. We're getting close to being done.
Councilor Brown, I'm going to let you have a turn here real quick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, obviously, like we talked about, this is just a proposal to annex land. There's not very many plans just yet in the works, but my question is, with these enterprise zones, what does the city look to do for the future with this revenue that's going to be at our disposal in the next couple of years?
We haven't made final decisions about that. That would be something the council would determine as we look at future financial and budget.
Thank you.
Councilor Kessel, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm not sure who to direct this to on staff, but could you explain maybe how many jobs have been provided by the land that's under consideration tonight in the last 100 years? The people in the city, near the city?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking how many jobs are created on the roughly 810 acres that are under consideration this evening. Aside from, as I mentioned, I think it's S1 up there is roughly 350 acres that has predominantly just been agricultural it's mostly been in alfalfa. I mean, a couple of jobs there associated with growing crops there, but all the rest of it has been completely vacant and is essentially native steppe habitat and has had 0 jobs over the last 100 years.
So it's fairly safe to assume that the amount that that land has contributed to the city of Hermiston and the greater area has been fairly minimal, approaching zero perhaps. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how many property tax dollars have been generated for the city by that land up to this point?
0.
So if everything following our actions tonight came to fruition, if the data centers were built, if all of the things, I snapped my fingers and it happened overnight, how many jobs would potentially be created on that land?
Yeah, so we anticipate somewhere in the range of around 200 jobs per one of those campuses. So I mean, we're looking upwards of 1,000 potential jobs in that area.
And how much property tax revenue, again, if this happened overnight, would be generated for the city of Hermiston?
For just the city of Hermiston, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Round numbers.
Yeah. Just the city of Hermiston itself per year, I mean, you're probably looking at $5 million a year just to the city of Hermiston itself. And again, city of Hermiston's permanent tax rate's $6 out of about $22 per thousand. So we're about a quarter of that per year.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, I can chime on that too. I worked,
Excuse me, I haven't recognized you yet.
Oh.
Counselor Brown had another question before you
Okay.
went in.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on my question and what the city manager's answer was. I appreciate that answer. It sounds to me, based on your answer, that it's going to be a community conversation and a council decision as to what's going to happen with the funds and the revenue that would be generated from the enterprise zone.
That's correct.
I think that's great.
Thank you. I'll get back to you in a second, Councilor Linton. I just want to double check with the rest of council if they have any other questions, comments, or concerns right now for this particular hearing. Okay, perfect. Councilor Linton.
okay, since the land is outside of the city limits and once it's voted in and it'll be annexed in, that's when we'll get the taxes. At this time, we're not getting taxes for that land. Is that correct?
At this time, we're not getting any. Once it's annexed and it's still vacant, we will get some, but not very
Okay.
much.
Okay, the job creation that you were talking about, since I did work out under IBEW 112, a lot of the employees come from out of state because we did not have enough people here in Hermiston that live here as residents in the past that were qualified. So do we have more people that are qualified to be able to go out there, the electricians, the ironmen, the construction, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I think you're typically when we're talking the electricians, that's generally talking about just the construction period jobs. So when I reference, upwards of 1,000 jobs, that completely discounts and ignores essentially the construction jobs. So those are roughly 1,000 permanent, full-time, long-term jobs. So we anticipate, when any one of those campuses is being built, anywhere around 1,500 people working on those campuses at any given time during construction. And so for any large scale capital project like that, there's no getting around. We're going to have to import, workers from outside of the region. I think one of the things that I think we talk about a lot with some of the smaller light industrial type developments in the South Hermiston Industrial Park, particularly with regard to the value of their land and maximizing that and developing some light industrial uses down there, adding this scale or this quantity of hyperscale data center construction, we don't anticipate all of that to occur like at the same time. It's not all going to happen in 1 year. So adding that much additional data center construction, we're looking at probably 10 to 15 years worth of construction timing taking place. And so that's where, to your point about importing some electricians from outside of the area, that's where you do get, 10 to 15 years on a job, because a lot of times those electricians, they're changing and swapping different, companies with whoever gets the bid for the general contractor that year. So, I think a lot of times these over time become filled by local electricians. And it depends on what you determine local. I mean, that could be Hermiston all the way to, Ellensburg in some instances.
Okay. Let me see here. This will be my last question. when we were talking about the water, um, it says that the data centers will need approximately 200 GPM water. Can Hermiston meet that need without affecting the water supply of Hermiston and surrounding area?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you, Councilor Linton. I want to thank you also for being consistent with asking questions that are relevant to the hearing. It's important that we have a clear understanding. Does any of the rest of the council have any further questions, comments, or discussion? All right, then city staff will now present its findings of fact. Planning Director Clint Spencer.
The entire package that is in front of you, but especially the first item, which after your ordinances, which is called the Hermiston Urban Growth Boundary Expansion and Related Plan and Code Amendments, which I call HUGB, is really the finding document. And so those 80 pages that are in the first item after Ordinance 2375 in your packet refer to the findings, how the Hermiston Comprehensive Plan policies are satisfied, as well as there's extensive findings on the statewide planning goals and OARs that govern urban growth boundary amendments. But then that document also, its findings reference out to the other appendixes that you have. So really, your findings are that main document, but then all of the other ones are the bolstering evidence for the main document. And evidently, we do need to make one amendment to it in the end to put that ordinance number in there, but we would otherwise recommend that it be adopted as presented.
Councilor Kelso.
I'd like to make a motion, and I move that the city council adopt findings of fact as contained in the Hermiston Urban Growth Boundary Expansion and Related Plan and Code Amendments and all appendices.
We have a motion from Councilor Kelso. Do we have a second?
Are we still in public hearing?
No, the public hearing is closed.
Okay.
City staff presented its findings of fact, so
Okay,
he can
thank
make a
you.
motion without me calling for
Thank
it.
you.
So we have a motion and a second, seconded by Councilor Myers. Roll call?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Sorry, I'm down a count. 6-1, Councilor Linton in opposition. This item will be presented again during Ordinance 2374 and 2375 for final action. And we'll move right on to that. Item 9A, Ordinance number 2374, Hermiston Urban Growth Boundary Amendment. So we'll request, Council President requests that the first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for a roll call.
Yes.
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 City Attorney Tuffy.
First reading by title only of ordinance number 2374, an ordinance amending the City of Hermiston Comprehensive Plan map, zoning ordinance, and zoning map. Council President.
Council President requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting and that the second reading be by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
City Attorney Tuffy.
So at this point, with the council being, it looks like it's a 6-1 vote for the reading. Under our code, this needs to be a unanimous decision for the second reading. So what we'll have to do at this point is set this over for the prescribed 14 days. And we'll have the second reading at our next meeting, which is scheduled for September 8th.
Thank you. That would preclude us from moving forward with this ordinance for anything else. Would that, but by the nature of the ordinance, do we need to not consider 2375 at this meeting?
I think at this time, what we could do is take the roll call for the first reading. And if that is unanimous for us to read it by title, we'll do that at this time
For ordinance 2375?
for 2375. That's correct.
Thank you. All right, so on to item 9B. Well, I should probably state for the record that ordinance number 2374 will be considered for a second reading at our next council meeting. Then moving on to item 9B, ordinance 2375, Hermiston Urban Growth Boundary Amendment Annexation. Council President requests that the first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for a roll call.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, City Attorney Tovey, I assume we're a different process now since the first reading did not become unanimous.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Council President. I think we got this in order. So at this time, we will do a single reading of the ordinance 2375 by title only, which is an ordinance annexing certain real property on Feedville Road, describing said real property, withdrawing said real property from special districts, and designating zoning.
Thank you, City Attorney Tovey. I think it would be, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would still be appropriate since we were able to do the reading for me to move on to the next action item. We still have to go for a vote for that, correct?
Roll call this.
The second reading. We did the roll call the first reading.
Because it wasn't unanimous, we're only going to do one reading.
Okay, perfect. So I won't move on to the second action item for this item.
So just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, unanimous votes on readings we only look to those to avoid having to come back and do a second reading. And here we don't have a unanimous vote. So there's been essentially 4 votes that have been taken. One to allow reading of the ordinance by title only, and then a vote on that first reading for that first question. Then we did the same for the second question. All we have left to do, as I understand it, Rich, is to get a roll call on the first reading by title only of the annexation ordinance. And then what's going to happen is in 2 weeks' time, they'll come back for a second reading. That makes sense?
And that'll be for both ordinance 2374 and 2375.
Yes, we'll come back at the next meeting, September.
Correct. And so we've already done 2374, so I think all we need is a roll call vote on 2375. Is that right?
We did do a roll call vote in 2375. There was just the first reading.
Okay.
So we're good.
Okay, perfect. All right, then we will see these ordinances 2374 and 2375 at our first meeting in September. Then we're moving on now to Resolution 2392, declare intent to form LID for Northwest 2nd Street. City Manager Smith.
Oh, Counselor.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Councilor Hayward had recused himself from the hearing process. Now,
That's terrible of us to forget about him.
all right, welcome back, Councilor Hayward. Now we'll move on to item 9C, Resolution 2392, declare intent to form LID for Northwest 2nd Street. City Manager Smith.
And Mr. Morgan.
All right, Council President, members of the council, this evening we're bringing back an issue that you heard extensively earlier this spring. So this is Resolution 2392 with regard to forming a local improvement district to pave Northwest 2nd Street. Okay, so first off, for those who weren't here back in the spring when we talked about this originally, why are we here? So the dash black line outlining 5 properties there represents the area that we're talking about for the LID. But historically speaking, Northwest 2nd Street and West Dogwood in that vicinity were never paved, even though there was commercial development that took place. So those red arrows are pointing at 3 of the 5 parcels which experienced construction on them, which is not city standard. And so every other commercial property that's developed around the city, at the time that they develop, they're required to put in, the street according to city standards. These properties were treated differently, and so they were not required at that time to put in city streets. Typically, what we saw around that time frame that those types of developments were occurring, rather than put in the street infrastructure at the time, those properties that developed in exchange for not building the street to city standard, they signed what we call a non-remonstrance agreement, which indicates that they would not oppose formation of a local improvement district in the future. So again, why is this even coming up? That red line that has been inscribed along Elm Avenue there bordering on 395, ODOT is planning in the spring of 26, so next spring, they're planning to install raised traffic barricades on that section of Elm that will preclude left hand in, left hand out into some of those businesses like Starbucks, as well as on the street that intersects there. So this will have the effect of diverting a significant amount of traffic into that area, driving around on gravel roadways. So that's why we're looking to really build both that section of Dogwood and Northwest 2nd Street. So back in the spring, we began formation of a local improvement district to construct just the yellow shaded portion of Northwest 2nd Street. That LID would have included 5 properties, but there was an issue with tax lot 2200. There was an anomaly in its signed non-remonstrance agreement. Again, it was allowed to develop against city standard without putting in the street in exchange for a non-remonstrance agreement indicating that they would build the street at some point in the future. Due to some textual errors on that non-remonstrance agreement, it was deemed that that may not be valid, were the LID to be contested. And so in that instance, the 5 property owners in that proposed LID, we received, if you include tax lot 2200, we received 4 out of the 5 properties had valid remonstrances. And so in that case, the city council needed unanimous support to proceed with implementing the LID and constructing that portion of Northwest 2nd Street. 7 out of 8 councilors voted in favor to proceed as is, which was not unanimous, and so that required us to go back and speak with the property owner in more detail. Ultimately, that culminated in, after several months of discussion with the property owner of tax lot 2200, the taxpayers will contribute an additional $75,000 to help buy down the cost of that project. And in exchange for that, the property owner of tax lot 2200 has since signed a new non-remonstrance agreement, effectively withdrawing their opposition to LID, the proposed LID. So that is also why some councilors may remember we had talked about at the time that the LID would not come back up until December, but that was only in the instance where there was more than 60% of the property owners having valid remonstrances. Now that there is not more than 60% of the property owners with valid remonstrances, that's what's allowing this issue to come back sooner than December. So finally, just some cost changes here. Again, the only change compared to this spring, the scope of the project is going to be exactly the same. The width of the paving is going to be the same. The sidewalks will be included. The entire project will be exactly the same, with the only change being that the taxpayers will contribute an additional $75,000 towards the project. And then also you'll notice some of the costs have come down when we developed the local improvement district plan. Like with any projection or estimate into the future, without getting into full-blown design, you have to make some assumptions. And so as we were going back through and revising the cost estimate, it was identified that one single line item had an assumption that the right-of-way width was going to be larger than it actually was. So we have revised that cost estimate down by $57,000. Important to keep in mind that, had that project proceeded forward, that would have been caught when we were going through the actual design and actually constructing, because they wouldn't have constructed a wider street than would have fit on that section of roadway. So that's not really an actual cost estimate. That's just, or cost savings. That's just simply reducing the estimate of how much the total project will cost. So again, important to keep in mind too, we're just talking about the LID for Northwest 2nd Street, but as really what's going to be happening is really a larger project with 2 sections of street being constructed at the same time. The city was always and will still now be covering 100% of the cost of developing the portion of West Dogwood between Spruce and 2nd there to really improve circulation throughout that entire neighborhood. So timeline now, moving forward, this evening if council votes on the intent to form the LID, then that moves it forward to the next council meeting of September 8th, where there will be an actual public hearing. And at that point, council will vote on whether or not to actually form the LID. If it is formed at that meeting, then immediately staff will move into full-blown design, probably bid the project and open bids over the winter. That'll lead into construction of the project in spring, summer of 26, and then that will lead into fall next year. That's when we actually reconcile the actual costs. So again, so far we're just basing things off of a cost estimate. And so once we finish the project, have got everything closed out, we know the actual costs, that's when we assign the actual costs to each of the property owners. And then at that point, the property owners have several options, one of which they may choose to pay their portion as a lump sum up front, which we have seen with other LIDs in the past, or the city's offering the ability to make their repayments in 10-year installments. And we just simply say that that's at the best financing available to the city at the time. We can't guarantee a rate at this point, but we will make that at the best financing that the city has available. And with that, I'd stand for any questions.
All right. So before we begin, I just want to remind everybody of the process here that we will go for an opportunity for council questions, then public comment, and then council comments. So I'll ask if there are any council questions at this time. Councilor Hayward.
Did the cost go up for us, taxpayers?
The cost went up by $75,000.
And that was because we didn't prove it last time fully?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other council questions? Councilor Brown.
My question might be more reserved, I guess, down a little bit down the line, but I do want to ask, well, maybe preliminarily, because we're not at the bid part yet. From my understanding, the family does have some construction companies or things that are in construction. Is that something that's possible? I guess, are they allowed to bid on this project to be able to do some of the work to pay down their costs?
They can bid on any project, as always. It's a normal public project. There was some request that they be allowed to supply some of the specific materials. I think that would probably fall outside of normal state procurement requirements. We have a duty to try and get the best bids possible. But so we'll follow all the state bidding laws, and we'll hope to provide them with any opportunities that are legally allowed.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Morgan. That is, in my conversation with the family, that is one of the things that I let them know. But for the record, I did want to ask that. And so I appreciate the forthcoming, and also was very forthcoming with them that the city would always take the lowest bidder. Although I think a lot of us here on the council would prefer like there be a local construction or people here locally doing that. The city is kind of bound by making sure that we get the best deal for our taxpayers. And so I did want to put that on the record, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Linton.
This seems a little rushed to me because we had till December, and I don't understand why is there been such a rush to get them to change their minds to go ahead and renounce what the remonstrance that they had originally had going.
Yeah. So there's something that I always remind our engineers at Anderson Perry, and it goes back to one of the Netflix series, and the saying is winter's coming. And so that's always the issue that we're up against when we're talking about these paving projects. And so the design process is going to take several months to make sure it gets to that point. Then we have to bid and construct it. So really, we're really trying to make sure that we hit this project in construction season of 2026. And so it's never a good feeling when we still have a paving project that's hanging out there that because we waited so long, it ends up pushing into November. Additionally, we want to make sure that we get the project out to bid over the winter time because that's also when we do see the best bids. If we're putting a project out to bid and a lot of the construction companies are already out there doing work, they're less likely to give us a good number, or if they already have their construction projects lined up for the season, then they might fit it in, but give us a higher number.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this because it has to do with ODOT as well. The dividers that they're going to be building in, how has Jack in the Box been notified? Because that may affect their business. So I don't know if we were to notify as the city or if ODOT is the one that's supposed to notify them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what ODOT's process was, but it would have been an ODOT process.
Okay.
Any other council questions? Any public comment on Resolution 2392? Any council comments? Councilor Brown?
Quite frankly, even though it did get postponed, I am happy with this end result. I'm happy that the city also showed some compassion in helping the family. There are multiple businesses on that in that LID, but those multiple businesses really pertain to one family, and so I think it shows great leadership from city administration to have those discussions with the family and find some middle ground, and so. I'm in favor of this. I'm really proud of the way that our city administration handled it. And in talking with the family, they also, obviously they signed the non-remonstrance agreement. They were also in agreement, I guess, more or less of how this is going to go down. So thank you very much for the conversations that you guys were able to have with the family.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2392 and lay it upon the record.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I'll give it to Councilor Myers. So motion by Councilor Hayward, second by Councilor Myers. Roll call.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's a 6-1 motion. And last time it didn't pass because it wasn't unanimous. So, 7 because Hayward's back.
Right.
7-1. Councilor Linton in opposition. So what is the process at this point?
This is just our resolution. We're fine with this vote, and this will move us forward to the next hearing.
Perfect. So we're good to move on then. Okay, perfect. All right, and then moving on to item 9D, Resolution 2393, Airport Property Acquisition Reimbursement. City Manager Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, so this is the good portion of our airport property acquisition process that we've been going through and giving you guys updates on for the past couple of years. But the action this evening is simply to authorize city staff to execute all the documents to accept a little over $2 million from the FAA. Council will remember back in June, you authorized the actual purchase of about 140 acres off the end of the runway. And so we, at that time, fully anticipated receiving grant funding from the FAA, but their process requires that we purchase the land first and then seek reimbursement. And so that's what's happening this evening, just authorizing us to actually receive the grant funding, which we were notified of last week that we've been awarded.
All right, any council questions? Any public comment on Resolution 2393? Any council comments? Councilor Kelso.
I'd just like to thank city staff for securing this funding. I know it was a long road and I appreciate your efforts and great job. Well done.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2393 and lay it upon the record.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Hayward, second by Counselor Roberts. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Congratulations on this too. Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 10A, our July 2025 monthly financial report. City Manager Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Council President, members of the council, Mr. Palacios is not feeling well tonight, so you're stuck with me, giving you the numbers. So overall, we're in the first month, end of the first month. There's not a lot to really talk about. First, in the Urban Renewal Agency, this budget required us to split it into 4 areas with the 3 areas called out and then any general costs for the urban renewal area. And the only activity really in this first month, we're still working on the construction of Aspen Avenue, or road, street, drive, okay, drive. And that one is moving forward. We're hoping still to bid it this winter, again, for the same reasons that Mr. Morgan explained about the Northwest 2nd Street project. For the general fund, it's about 8.3% of the year. Monthly revenues are up about 145,000 on projections. And that is really due to an increase in franchise fees based over just what we were projecting and what we have seen in past years. Monthly expenses are up quite a bit more than we would normally see, but this is really due to the transfer of the building funds to a newly created building inspection fund. That was about $2.7 million. Because by state law, building inspection and plan review fees are required to be only spent on building department functions. And because we were starting to see increased revenues, we separated that in the budget. And so if we were to take out that transfer on our expenses, we would be about $200,000 under our normal projections, our 3-year average. There are a few departments that are over due to some initial first month expenses that are large. For example, we pay our LOC dues out of the city council budget every July, and that's a large expense, so it kind of puts it a little bit above the averages. The special revenue funds, now you'll start to see the building inspection fund called out in that fund. We're also, the EOTech fund is a little bit heavy on expenses right now. We're waiting reimbursement from Amazon for the RV park project. We have to go through some steps on their side to start receiving money. We're almost through those steps, and so we should start to see that money be reimbursed. And then also we have, the first month of the fiscal year, we're in the middle of getting ready for fair, and so we spend a little bit extra on part-time and different things getting ready. So on the utility and street funds, we're a little bit over projection just due to some transfers to our reserves for projects. HES, this is a thing we run into every year. We have to recognize some revenue just by the time we collect it. We recognize it in a different fiscal year, so it looks a little bit odd in the first year or in the first month of the year. Regional Water Fund, again, we're transferring money out for some projects, and so just the initial month is higher than we would normally anticipate. Now, capital projects, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, so I was very happy to fully kick off Anderson Perry on doing the full-blown design for the Gear and Harper realignment. That's been a very long project, and so I think a lot of folks have questions about where that project's at. So we've been having good meetings with the railroad and their consultants, and so we're down to just the final comments on that realignment project. And so to my point earlier about timing of some of these design projects, we anticipate finishing with the full design this winter, opening bids late winter, early spring, and being into construction summer, fall of next year on realigning that intersection. So you heard it here first. Avoid the intersection of Gear and Harper next fall, or start planning your alternative routes. But yeah. People probably avoid it as it is, so that may be a good thing. But North First Sidewalk, again, still waiting on a response from the railroad on that project. Regional water system backup generators, still in design. Well number 6 chlorination structure, still in design on that project. Lift station 5 wet well project, waiting for design to begin. East Evelyn Avenue gravity sewer line, again, we're waiting to begin design on that project. Our ASR project, we reached the final depth of drilling that well last week, and so now the contractor's moving into actually outfitting that facility in order to start pouring water down the hole and recharging the aquifer this winter. And then our well number 4 controls project, that's just been on hold as we made it through the peak irrigation season. And so now that we're starting the slow descent down the other side, we'll be able to take well number 4 offline this fall. So we anticipate moving forward with that project here in the next couple of months. Then up at the airport, the hangar replacement project, we had the actual building kit delivered about a month or so ago. If you go out to the airport now, or you look over there from EOTech, you'll see a vertical structure, and they're starting to put walls on it. And so we anticipate to have some tenants in their hangars now this fall.
And libraries moving forward. Most of the shelving's installed, flooring is all in. We anticipate starting to move books back from storage the day after Labor Day. And so if you've been following, they've announced there'll be a temporary closure again while they're moving books and getting that started. We haven't finalized the date, but we're looking at a October, maybe late September, but early October grand opening. So we'll have a soft opening before that, but grand opening sometime at the end of September, early October. The ARC, there's really nothing moving on that at this point. Sherman Park design is ongoing. We're hopeful we'll get that out to bid in the near future. And then on the Public Safety Center, framing, insulation, all those things are going on. Mechanical and electrical work in the walls is mostly done. The rough in, since they're installing insulation. So that continues to move forward. We had to push back the walkthrough. We were going to do that tonight, but just a timing on where they were in construction, we're looking at probably the second meeting in September to do that, just to make sure that they're finished with some things that they wanted to not kind of inhibit the walkthrough. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll start with one. We talked about the library. Are we still projecting an October opening?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we've talked about the Public Safety Center, and I think we've used the words seismic retrofitting. And somebody asked me, we don't get earthquakes in Hermiston, and I'm just curious if it can be explained just for public knowledge why we still need to do that.
Well, that's a great question. The best explanation is there's seismic retrofit grants available throughout the state, and the state wants to make sure that that gets spread equally throughout the state or at some level out. So we're eligible to reinforce. I mean, basically it's reinforcing roofs and things like that is what the funding, really the amount it allows. And so it gives us a chance to replace a roof and do that. In the rare chance we do get an earthquake, it will also help with that.
Follow-up comment. Somebody was also under the impression that Public Safety Center was also the jail and did not think the ARC could hold as many people. And can we just, for public knowledge, just state where jail is?
Okay, so I understand that there was a jail in that building at one point, but there hasn't been a jail there for a long time. We have some holding cells, and we will have holding cells in there in the future. But the real jail, obviously, is in Pendleton.
Thank you very much. Just want to make sure everybody knew that, so there wasn't any confusion. I have no further questions. Does council have any questions on the July 2025 monthly financial report? Any public comment on the financial report? Council comments? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been motioned by Councilor Hayward, seconded by Councilor Duran. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to committee reports. Do we have any of those? We're also catching up from fair, I think, yeah. All right, moving on then. Council President report. I don't have a lot. I still feel like I'm catching up from when I was gone. I want to thank you all for moving on without me from the last last session. Not a whole lot coming up, but I do want to remind everybody that as we head back into the school season, we have to go back to those 20-mile-per-hour speed zones. So make sure that we're doing that, even though you all break the rule anyways. But go ahead and just make sure we're watching for our kids. There'll be a lot of more people walking, and so just be careful as we're doing that. Council reports.
I got one.
Councilor Hayward.
I did have Lily send out to everybody on the council. Harrison Parks, our local churches in our town, did a barbecue, giving out backpacks for students that need it with supplies and also vegetables. It's a good testament of our churches coming together in the city of Hermiston and giving back to the community. This wasn't asked of them. They just did it as a need. So I gotta say, welcome to what they did and thank you.
I also want to thank you, Councilor Hayward, for making sure the council got some pictures of that event. Thank you very much. Any other council reports? Go ahead, Councilor Brown.
Yeah, last week was the first week I was able to attend another city council meeting outside of ours. So I attended the Pendleton City Council meeting with their discussion on homelessness. And so it was a really good hearing. A lot of people spoke up. It's been the most people I've seen in a building, honestly. It was very packed, but it was really good, and it makes me look forward to going to other city council meetings as well and kind of seeing how they run their thing. The decorum for the most part was really good in the meeting, and so I thought it was very impressive how civil and how well run the meeting was with so many people having so much emotion about the topic. It was run really well, and yeah, it was good. So I know that other councilors have been to other council meetings, and I look forward to doing the same with a couple other meetings in the area. So it was really cool.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Anybody else? All right, managers report.
I have nothing to add tonight.
All right, then in that case, we're going to recess for executive session. The City Council of the City of Hermiston will now meet in executive session in the executive session room for the purposes of discussing matters pertaining to litigation with legal counsel and discussing matters pertaining to the review and evaluation of employment-related performance of City Manager Byron Smith. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660 2H and I, which allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the council to consult regarding the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and to review and evaluate, pursuant to the standards, criteria, and policy directives adopted by the governing body, the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member unless the person whose performance is being reviewed and evaluated requests an open hearing. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are excluded. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No final decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, the council will return to open session, which the audience may attend. The executive session will last approximately 30 minutes. Kind of a weak apple, but.
Lily's paying attention.
All right, we're reconvening here after our executive session. We're going to move on to 13A, considering approval of changes to the city manager employment contract. City Manager Smith.
Yes, so thank you again for the chance to work for the city. This has been a great place. I've requested 3 changes. First, for an increase in my car allowance from $450 to $700 a month. And then change in the deferred compensation. And so this, currently, the city contributes $7,400 to my deferred compensation. But because it's set up as a match, the city has to pay PERS on top of that. And so that makes it about $9,600 if you add PERS on top of that. And so what I'm asking for would be to just make a direct contribution of $10,500, and that's only an increase of about $900 in a cost to the city. But it all goes, then all of it's going to my deferred compensation that I have control over, investments and so forth outside of PERS. And so that's why the change. And we actually, I didn't know this until we were in the middle of union negotiations, and we actually did this for the police union as well, to be able to maybe encourage more of them to invest, because it costs the city less for us to just make a contribution, not require the match. They can still make a match. I can still make a contribution, but it's not a requirement, so it's not PERS, subject to PERS. And then the other request is for the opportunity. Sometimes I've had the opportunity to, or been requested to maybe do consulting on different things. I would never do something in a place where I would be in competition with the city. And I would never use city resources to do it. It would all be my personal equipment, computers or whatever. And just an opportunity kind of to grow a little bit, to maybe take on some different things that we don't see here, or assist a city manager in another state or different things. So those are my 3 areas of request. I'd be happy to talk about them, answer any questions.
All right, do we have any council questions? Councilor Brun.
A question on the car allowance is the request, is that a net amount or is that taxed?
That's the way car allowances are handled. That it's like compensation. It just gets added to my salary essentially and gets taxed at my tax rate. So I don't know what the net is on 700, but
So it wouldn't be 700,
be
700 after tax.
less than that, something.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Kelso.
On the consulting piece, would there be any requirements for you to report to the city, your consulting activities?
I can't remember this one. This one, it doesn't. I have seen that language where, I would just let the council know that I was doing that, and I'd be happy to add something like that.
Okay, thank you.
I think Councilor Duran had a question before Councilor Linton.
And the consulting thing, of course, would not be in any violation of the Ethics Commission or anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Councilor Linton.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask about the consulting as well. Is that will be like in the evenings or weekends?
Right.
Okay.
It would not ever interfere with the work that I do for the city.
I just want to get an understanding of the deferment. That is totally separate from PERS retirement. This will be a totally separate account.
Right. It's like a 401k, but for public entities, it's called a 457k. I have one already, and I've used it in different cities and just move it with me.
All right, Counselor Roberts.
On the car allowance, we have city cars. I'm curious, what the reason is for not using the city cars during like daytime hours.
This was a decision the council made in 2014, basically, because that was how actually the previous city manager had a city vehicle. I requested to have a car allowance. At that time, I had young children, that type of thing. I wanted to not feel or have people, why is he coming to the school to pick up kids in that city vehicle? Why, you know, I just wanted to avoid some of that. So that's why I went down this road. And actually, I think it saves some work, because if you have a city vehicle and you're using it for personal, you have to keep track of that, because that's compensation as well. And so just tracking that, I felt like this was a cleaner.
So I guess, is there anything precluding you to keep the cost down for yourself for like during business hours using a city car, instead of your own conveyance?
There's not.
Okay.
I mean, it was just a change. That's how we've been going, and right now I'd probably prefer to go that way, continue that way, but you know, like when I travel, because it's cheaper for the city, when I travel outside of Umatilla and Morrow County, which is what the car is to be used for, I use a city vehicle because it's more expensive for the city to reimburse me mileage on my own car.
Right.
And so when I travel outside of the county, I always do that just to save money for the city.
Okay.
But
Any other council questions?
So is there going to be a comment period? I guess the only.
Well, we'll do questions, public comment, and then council comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you want to say anything about it? All right, now council comments. Councilor Barone.
Okay, I for one like the proposal that Councilor Kelso said. So if we do go for the full thing and approve, then I would suggest an amendment of the city manager at least letting us know who's consulting when appropriate.
would you be okay if if Rich and I worked on the language, and then, I mean, if you proved to be signed that way, and then the mayor takes a look at it and makes sure it's okay before he signs it, would that be? Because I'm totally open to that type of language. But.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Our motion would need to have an amendment in it, correct?
To
though,
approve
to do
that
that?
with language, yes.
Okay. Any other council comment? Go ahead, Councilor Roberts.
I'm going to take these one bullet point at a time. Removal of the matching deferred compensation plan. Now that I understand the math behind it a little bit, that it's not a significant increase, I have no issue with that. The car allowance, I'm personally against, just because of the fact we do have city cars that we're paying for. You know, if we up the usage, that could offset that cost. It's mainly for the taxpayers. It's not anything against Mr. Smith. It's an added cost that we're asking the taxpayers to fund when there are other options to help mitigate that. So that's just my thought on that. And as far as the outside activities, again, with the amendment, I have no issue with that. Secondary employment's pretty common, especially with government employees. And so as long as there's no conflicts of interest, we're being notified of it. I have no issue with that.
All right, any other council comments? Councilor Kelso, did you have something?
After Councilor Roberts' comments, I do have a question. Is there currently a fleet vehicle available for the city manager's use?
Not exclusively. I mean, we have one that we share. Like, for example, tomorrow it's going to be used by some other staff to go to a training, you know, so it would probably require acquiring maybe another one to make sure I had one most of the time.
Thank you.
Councilor Hayward?
So you do use the city vehicle when you can, just when you don't have that option.
No, only when I go outside of
The city.
outside of Umatilla and Morrow counties. I kind of cut off that paragraph, but that's what the paragraph talks about, is for use when I'm going to meetings within Umatilla and Morrow, I use my vehicle and I don't ask for mileage. And so, But if I travel outside of that, then I take a city car if I can, which most of the time I can do that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any further council comments? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve all three asks of the city manager with the amendment of notifying the council of any negotiation, or not negotiation, but any consulting.
Consulting, yeah.
Right.
Second.
Check.
All right, it's been moved by Counselor Barone. I'll give the second to Counselor Kelso. Roll call.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 7-1. Sorry, my math is all sorts of wrong today. Counselor Roberts in opposition. All right, then we are 2 minutes over, so I'm just going to go ahead and adjourn now.